Okay, welcome everyone. As we learn this evening, Stephen Holtzman asks us to learn Ilui Nishmas Yechiel Michal ben Yosef Halevi, and we'll learn for Rabbi Snow, who's having heart surgery, Moshe ben Pesel. Also, a member here in the Colony Elm Shade Estates, fine young lady is having a surgery tomorrow. Tzipora Bas Malka Etel should have Refuah Shalema B'Seich Shechel Yisrael. We are sponsored on our tour through Bava Basra by Shalom Fogel, Ilui Nishmas Yaakov Zev ben Yehuda Aryeh, Rivka Bas Yaakov Yosef, Tzivya Miriam Bas God, and Yosef ben Sion ben Yaakov Zev. We are sponsored by Baruch Ian, Ilui Nishmas Yaakov Chaim ben Abba, Esther Bas Gittel, Avram ben Shmuel HaKayin. We are sponsored by Yaakov Yumansky with Akar Satov to the Rav and the Zoom family, and Nachas from children and grandchildren. We're sponsored by A.B. Spry for Nachas from children and grandchildren, Ed Salah from London, and Joshua Rosenberg, a virtual Talmud. We are holding now on the bottom of Samach Beis Amud Beis, and we're holding by V'Amar Rabbah, 4 lines from the bottom. V'Amar Rabbah, 4 lines from the bottom. So the Gemara tells us, V'Amar Rabbah, here, what's happening is I'm selling land to Marshall. So if I say Meitzer Ara Dimino Palga, the border of the land from which I am selling you half, Palga, then I have to give him half of the land. Meitzer Ara Dimino Psika, the border of the land that from with it, I am giving him a piece. A piece, the smallest piece, is an area that you could plant 9 kav of seed. So then the din is tes kavan. I have to give him a piece of land only where you could plant 9 kav of seed, the minimum plot of land for planting. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye says, I don't understand. Psika and palga are both a lashon of cutting and dividing. So Maishna Hachi or Maishna Hachi. So Ishtik, Rabbah was silent. So Savar Mina, Abaye thought that Rabbah was silent, that Aidi Palga, that he acquiesced to the fact that either case I have to give Marshall a half. However, Velohi, it's not so. Top line of Samach Gimel Amud Aleph. Dama Rab Yemer Bar Shalmia, L'dibdi Mifresh Laminei Dabaya. To me, it was explained by Abaya. Bein Martz Meitzer Ara Dimina Palga. Whether I say to Marshall, the boundary of the land from which I am dividing it, or I say Meitzer Ara Dimina Psika, that I'm cutting it. If when I give the borders of the land, I don't say to the east, to the west, and the south. I say the borders of the land to the east. Now, Ilan Mitzrana, if I say these are the borders, that's a Yiter Lashon. Because all I had to say was the border to the east is this, the border to the south is this, and the border to the west is this. If I say extra, and these are the borders, a Yitur Lashon comes to tell me that I'm giving him more than the minimal amount. I'm giving him half. Palga. Layamar Ilan Mitzrana, if I didn't say, and these are the borders, I didn't say Yitur Lashon, then whether I said Palga, whether I said Psika, I meant the border of that which I am cutting from you a piece, dividing for you a piece, and it means the minimal piece, because tafasta maruba loy tafasta mu'et tafasta, which is the amount of land that you could plant 9 kav of seed. Now, I don't think I welcomed in everybody. I wasn't such a good host over here, but I wanted to get started.
I'm so insulted.
I wasn't talking about you.
I know.
As we welcome in Saba, we welcome in Stephen Holtzman, Yitzi Fuchs in the shul. We welcome in Michal Avram and Rich Lenner, Ruvain Shannon, Yisrael Fisher, Shalom Fogel, Mo Kushner, Ruvain Pollack, Menachem Umansky, Baruch Ian, Michael, Gedalia Engel, Dr. Block, Yisrael Meir Kaplan, Nachman Chapler, Barish Gesserman, Avram Rezepkowitz, Ilya Shutman, Abe Arbach, Rabbi Kranz, Daniel Rosenberg, and anybody else.
I've been called a lot of things, but not that.
You know, I want to tell you something, Marshall. I took my wife out to eat tonight, and as we're leaving, so somebody stops me with his family for a bracha. Says, you know, Rabbi Weiss, I listen to you every night. So I said to him, why don't you come on Zoom? So he says he listens at different times. So my wife said to him, well, you know, if you come on, my husband could treat you like Marshall. So he says, no, only the rabbi's good friends get treated like that.
Whoa. I guess I'm honored.
Yeah, it was funny, you know. You know, it was funny that he right away knew who you were. Anyway, okay. Pshita, it's obvious that if I say to Marshall, Yachloik Pliny benichsai, Pliny should take half, because Yachloik means to cut it in half. Marshall could take half of my estate, Palga. If I say Tnu Chelik LePliny, now Chelik might mean half, from a lashon of Cholak, to divide, but it also could mean a minuscule portion, a Chelik. So Tnu Chelik LePliny Menichsei Mai, what's the din? So now the Gemara is going to say, well, Chelik might be a minuscule portion, or it might mean half. So according to Sumchis, who holds Maman Amulta B'Safek Cholkin, it's between a minuscule and a half, that's a quarter. So a quarter and a minuscule amount. Amar Ravina Bar Kisi, now that's a very unusual grouping. Ravina Bar Kisi. Amar Ravina Bar Kisi, Tajma. The Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, if I say, give a chelik to Shalom in my pit, a chelik of water. Now, the normal amount, since chelik could either mean a half, or it could mean a tiny amount. So Sumcha Zaymer ain't Pachas Meraviyah. Shalom gets a quarter. Because we say Maman Amut B'Safek Cholkin. It might be a minuscule amount, or it might be half. So we give him a quarter. To be exact, it's a quarter and a little bit. Now, L'chavyus. If I say that it should be used, and the Rashbam says when it says L'chavyus, it means for giving the animals to drink. Now, generally, they gave to the animals to drink a half of the contents of the bar. So since I said to give to Shalom a chelik for the chavyas, and the whole amount would be a half. So a chelik means either a quarter, use a half is a quarter, or it means a small amount. So maman mamut b'safik cholkin, what's a half of a quarter? A half of a quarter is also 2/8. So a half of a quarter is an eighth. So ein pachas mishminis, I have to give him an eighth. L'kedera, for cooking. Now normally, for cooking, it's a third. And I said give him a chelik for cooking. So if it means a half, so a half of a third is a sixth. On the other hand, it might be a minuscule amount. So from a minuscule to a sixth, what's a half of a sixth? A half of a sixth is a twelfth, because a sixth is also 2/12. So a half of a sixth is a twelfth, so I have to give Shalom a twelfth. Ein pachas miyud beis. L'tfiach, if I tell him for drinking purposes, now drinking purposes is a quarter of the bar. And I said a chelik of drinking. So if a chelik means a half, then it would be an eighth. If it's a minuscule amount, it's a minuscule. So I have to give him a half of an eighth. A half of an eighth is a 16th. So ein pachas mishish os. Now, Tan Rabbanan. Ben Levi, Shemachar Saduli Yisrael. A Levi, here we have, do we have any Levis here? Yisrael is a Levi. I see Steve is also a Levi. But okay, let's use, Steve is on top there. We'll use Steve. Steve sells land to Marshall. I don't know what possessed him, but okay. Ben Levi, he's wearing a colorful shirt, so he's feeling a little Purim dick. So he sells land to Marshall, and he stipulates with Marshall, the condition that I'm selling you the land is that the 10th of my Rishon every year you have to give to me. Not to any other Levi, not to Yisrael. No, you have to give it to me. So Tan Rabbanan Ben Levi Shemachar Sadul Yisrael v'amaloi al Menashe Ma'aser Rishon Shali, on the condition that the Ma'aser Rishon is mine, Ma'aser Rishon Shaloi. Now, let's say if the Levi was Chatzkel, so v'im Amar, if Chatzkel HaLevi says to Marshall, Li, I'm selling to you land that the Ma'aser Rishon should be mine, Ulabanai, and to my children after me. So then, Meis, if Chatzkel dies, Yitain Labana. Then Marshall has to give the Ma'aser Rishon to Chatzkel's children. Now we could go back to Steve. If Steve sells the land to Marshall, the Ima Malay, he says, Kol's man sha'asadazu biyodcha. As long as you own the field, Marshall, you have to give me the Ma'aser Rishon. Machra, if Marshall sold the field to Baruch, and then v'chazer v'lakha, and then he bought it back from Baruch, all bets are off. He doesn't have to give the Ma'aser Rishon anymore to Steve, because Steve said, as long as you have it, then ain't lo yalav klum. Then Steve has no claim. But here's the question. We said Steve could sell land to Marshall and stipulate that he has to give him the Ma'aser Rishon. But the Ma'aser Rishon isn't even in the world yet. So how can he be stipulated about a davar shaloi b'laylam? Amai ain't on the makna davar shaloi b'laylam. So how could Marshall agree to that it should be the Ma'aser Rishon should be Steve's, it's not in the world yet. Says the Gemara, an interesting lumdus. The way it works is, Kevan de Amalei al Manasseh Ma'aser Rishon Shali, since Steve said on the condition that the Ma'aser Rishon is mine, what he's essentially doing is he's saying, I'm not selling you the part of the land where the Ma'aser Rishon grows. Shiyurei Shairei Lamakam. He kept for himself in the field the part of the field where the Ma'aser Rishon grows. It's cool.
He'll have to take Truma then.
Huh? What?
He'll have to take Truma then.
No.
Why? It's his field.
He didn't keep for himself the part where the Ma'aser Truma grows.
How can he keep to himself just for one thing but not for the other thing?
Why not? Do you know how to figure out how much Ma'aser Rishon there is? That amount he kept for himself. Now, Amar Reish Lakish, so Reish Lakish says, we have a parallel case where we see this theme. Zoysei Meres, HaMoicher Bayis L'Chaveiroi, in the event that Dr. Block sells a house to Marshall. Now we said that when Dr. Block sells a house to Marshall, if it has a roof with a parapet of 10 tefachim, he doesn't sell to Marshall the roof. V'amaloi al manashid yuta el yoyne shali, on the condition that the upper level is mine, in other words, the roof. Diyuta el yoyne shali. Now the question is, that's a yitur lashon. That's an extra language, because the roof was already Dr. Block's. It had a parapet. It was already, so what did he have to say? Al Menashe Yuta El Yon Shali. Remember we said in a shtar, if there's a Yitur Lashon, it's coming to include something. What's it coming to include? Lamai Hilchasa. It's coming to include Rav Zvid Amar, Shem Ratza Lahaiti Bazizin Maiti. If he wants to project projections into the courtyard, he can. Now we said that normally, when you sell a house and a courtyard, you're not allowed to project into the courtyard. Here, when he said this Yitur Lashon, he's saying it to reserve for himself something extra. What's he's reserving for himself? He's reserving for himself the right to project projections into Marshall's courtyard. But as the Rashbam explains, the area of an airspace is a davar shaloi b'laylam. It's not a tangible. So it must be, says the Rashbam, that it means that when he sells the courtyard to Marshall together with the house, he's reserving space in the courtyard for the projections. So that's the same idea as our case. Rapapa says that Dr. Block said an extra, different reason why he said the Yitur Lashon about the Diyuta El Yaina, that if the roof collapsed, he could rebuild it. She'im Ratza Livnois Aliyah Al Gaba, which Rashbam means not something on top of the roof, but rather it means if the roof collapses, boina. Now that is not the same. And that's what Gemara says, that this would not fit in the Zoysei Meres. Bishleim Rav Zvid Hainu Diktani Zoysei Meres. And just like we're saying over here, that because of the Yitur Lashon, because of the extra language, we're reserving the right. Yitur Lashon, because he said Ma'aser Rishon Shali, he's reserving part of the land that he sold to Marshall, the part that will be the Ma'aser Rishon. He's reserving for himself. So here also, because of the Yitaloshon, he's reserving part in the courtyard to project projections. So that's a similar case. He's not reserving anything extra. He's just stipulating that if it collapses, he could rebuild it. So it's not the same thing. So the Gemara says, Kasha, you're right. According to Rav Papa's pshat, it wouldn't be a good Zoisei Meres. Now, we welcome in Richard Rosenzweig. Nachman Chapler. Amarav Dimi Menardo. Hai man de mazvin le beisa lechavre. I sell a house to Marshall. Now the question is, does Marshall get the tanks and the wells? Afal gav the cost of le veruma, even though I say till the depths and till the sky. Tzarech lemichtav le, I have to say the yiter lashon of kneilach, it should be acquired to you mitahaim ara va'adrum rakia. If I just say veruma, he doesn't get the bar and the dus. He doesn't get the well and the tanks. The only thing he gets if I say veruma is that he could make a basement and he could make a high rise. If he wants to get the tank and the wells, I would have to write him the yitalosh mitum ara va'adrum rakia. Why? My timer. The veruma, because the right to build a basement and to build a high rise, bistama loikani, Marshall doesn't get. Ahani veruma, then the first extra language of veruma helps lemikne veruma, to give a rights to build a basement and a high rise. However, v'hani mituma ara v'adrum rakia, if you say extra from the depth of the ground until the heights of the sky, then, only then, lemikna bar v'dus mechilas. Only then will he get the well, the cisterns, and the other tunnels. So the Gemara says, Lema Messiah, let's adduce a proof to this. V'loyes habar, v'loyes hadus. Marshall doesn't get the well, the cistern, afal pi shekasav loy veruma. Even though I wrote veruma. Now, that would seem to prove that writing stam that he has the house, he doesn't get the basement rights and the high-rise rights. If even if I just say I'm selling him the house, he gets the basement rights and the high-rise rights, then veruma, when I add veruma, lahani kani veruma, then lahani veruma, when I add veruma, it should help lemiknei bar dos mechilas to get the well and the tank and the tunnels. Must be that if I just say I'm selling him the house, he doesn't get the air rights. He doesn't get the underground rights. That's why I have to say veruma, and therefore veruma doesn't give him also the well and the tanks. Says Gemara, no. The loy kosovle. The only time he doesn't get the well and the tanks is if I don't write veruma. Says Gemara, afal pisha kosovle katani. It says even though I wrote it. Says Gemara, no. I'll tell you how. This is it seems to be a daichik, but the Gemara says you could learn the Mishnah as follows: Hachi kamar afal gav shaloi kosovle. Even if I don't say veruma, kemi shekasav dami. It's as if I wrote it regarding the ear rights. Lemikna veruma. Lemikna bar v'dus mechilas, to acquire the well, the cisterns, and the tunnels. Ikasav le veruma kani. If you write veruma, you acquire it. V'loikasav loikani. But maybe you don't have to write in order to get the bar and the dus mituma ara adrum rakia. It's not a proof. Says the Gemara, Tojma. Gemara tries another proof. When I sell to Marshall a house, he doesn't get the roof when there's a parapet. But wait a second. If you want to conjecture that when I sell him stam, he gets the air rights, he should surely get the roof. You get all the way down to China and all the way up to the sky. So what if the parapet is high 10 tefachim? Says the Gemara, no. Since the roof has a parapet of 10 tefachim, that's already a chosh of a room, which I didn't sell. Chosh. But says the Rashbam, over the roof, I would have to leave, Marshall would have to leave me in use of the roof, but if he wanted, he could put up supports and build over the roof, over the 10 tefachim. He could go higher and build another level. But maybe it's possible that even if you don't say kiveruma, you get the ear rights and the basement rights. And kiveruma alone would entitle you to bar, dus, and mechilas. So it's not a proof. So tomorrow we'll investigate more this question. We're going to do the Mishnah Yomis now. Remind you that tomorrow night will also be a Chumash share and also about the beginning of Mevarchin Chodesh Elul, which will take place this Shabbos. Again, if anybody wants to sponsor this all-important parsha, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. And now we're going to learn the Mishnah Yomis.